And joining us on the line is Mr. Manuel de Freitas, a DA Member of Parliament. Tandy Smith is with Media Monitoring Africa. To both of you, thanks so much for joining us. We'll start with you, Mr. De Freitas, just on your reaction on this dramatic resignation or removal of Collins Letsoalo.
Well, I think first of all, it's the right move, because it's a clear example of how an official tries to, quite frankly, milk the system. And good for the board for pulling it back. I'm certainly going to be asking further questions as far as to the minister, as far as, for example, was any additional monies paid to him and so forth, because it certainly needs to be paid back. But what the problem is that it's a lot deeper than this. I submitted questions to the minister in November last year. The minister responded, where I asked about the remuneration of CEOs of the different entities. And what the answers came back indicated that each entity is kind of left up to the own devices to decide on the amount and so forth. There's no standardization, there's no ceiling, there's no parameters in which these CEOs get paid and how the remuneration practices work. And that's part of the problem. So I'm going to be asking the minister to look at some kind of standardization. And in fact, it cuts through to all of the public service because it's kind of left, to their own devices. So actions like this, like Mr. Sosa's attempt to try and, give dramatic increases to himself, are potentially there. So we need to standardize it. It's crazy. And as one of the inserts you put there said, that it, in the end is the poor that suffer. And as we things stand, there haven't been major improvements in process since his arrival as acting CEO. And the trains have been deteriorating. More and more people are leaving from using rail because it's not efficient. It's getting, in fact, worse.
Yeah, but why does it have to take a media expose for any action to be taken, Mr. De Freitas? In the sense that, if you've raised the question with the minister saying that state-owned entities, CEOs, essentially have carte blanche as to how much they pay themselves, why hasn't anything been done?
Well, let me tell you that this information that was on the Sunday Times, I had been given verbally. But, you can't, and just like in the media, you can't act on something verbal. So I have no doubt the information is true, but I needed some, backup information. And good for the journalist who was able to obtain, backup written documentary proof of what these rumors were. But unfortunately, that is the problem. That's one of the frustrations that journalists and myself as Member of Parliament have, in that unless it's splashed all over the papers and it is embarrassing for a department or for an official or a politician, only then does kind of some acts happen. And that is part of the problem. When we bring it up and we say, like, these are the concerns, let's try and fix the problem, it takes a lot longer. And it's only when it's dramatically on the front page that, action seems to happen. And that's very sad.
Yeah, but while we know that, of course, media can uncover quite a bit that we ordinarily would not know about, it is a lengthy process in getting to the bottom of issues, be it that there's a judicial inquiry going forward, Mr. Letsoalo, and rightfully saying that he'll exercise his right for legal counsel and in the process clear his name.
Yes, look, that is absolutely right. And if in fact he is correct and, and his name is being smudged and there's incorrect information, and so be it, and, the process must be followed, and then his name will be cleared. But, from what I understand, there is documentary proof that indicates that this is not the case. And certainly and it's a good thing if this kind of stuff is exposed, because otherwise things are hidden and put under the carpet. Just to respond to what you're saying about, why is nothing being done and so forth, I can give you numerous examples of information that the minister herself would respond to questions I submitted, and I then follow up and make suggestions, make proposals, ask her to action on something and so forth. And because politics gets in the way, unfortunately, a lot of the things that we try and do to make South Africa better, to make the country move forward, is ignored because it's seen through a lens of politics, and that's part of the problem. It's very frustrating because we all agree that we want to improve rail. We all agree that it's the people on the ground, the poorest, that are always suffering, and we wanted to make it better for everyone. But yet, getting there and trying and being the messenger and happening to be a messenger from a different political party, it becomes a problem.
All right, Mr. De Freitas, please stay on the line. We have Mr. Alo Baleni and Botsang Moelwa, political analyst. Mr. Baleni, let's just start with you, your reaction. Of course, politics does come into the fray, and the DA saying that they've raised this particular concern of what allegedly CEOs of state-owned companies just writing their own check, essentially.
I don't know if we can track other entities, but I think the specific case that we're discussing now, for me, is quite interesting because there are so many gaps in it. Because so far, we've heard him kind of reacting to what the Sunday Times actually put out. And then all of a sudden, and he was very bold to say he's confident that everything he has done is above board. He's there to fight corruption. But if he was there to fight corruption and he becomes, all of a sudden, if the allegation is true, that he was corrupt himself, so there's a gap there. Then we had someone from the PRASA saying he has been removed by the board, the same board that would have actually signed the check that he got. So we don't have concrete information. It is not very clear what happened. And we think we need deeper information in terms of the ministry itself. All
right, Thandi Smith is on the line via Skype, Media Monitoring Africa. Thandi, thanks so much for joining us. Just, of course, the reports in the press, seemingly having pressured Mr. Collins Letsoalo to resign or to be removed. What's your reaction?
Hi, sorry, I am struggling to follow the conversation. The line is quite bad and I've just had an interruption in my signal. So just forgive me if I haven't heard anything correctly. But, we did see the report come out in Sunday Times or in the Sunday paper yesterday. And, I did hear, I didn't get the name, but the representative from the DA mentioned, something like this has to, what seems as if an event like this has to come out in the media for action to be taken. And I think that there's truth in that as well. We have seen as a result of a lot of media coverage that things have moved on. But we also saw this morning that, the acting CEO did say that there was a lot of false reporting that came out of the story yesterday. And I think that is something that needs to be taken into consideration. I think that, the reports that we saw definitely had, had legitimacy to them, because there obviously have been irregularities with the salary process, and we see now he has been, suspended. But we are in an environment where media is in a crisis of credibility. With the rise of fake news and false information being reported, I think if any time now is as important for media to make sure that they are getting their facts right, that they are reporting accurately, that their sources are credible, and that there is weight to their stories.
Is this something that PRASA and its board can explain away? We've seen the refutal by Mr. Letsoalo while he was still in the position to say, the HR personnel, which the paper had reportedly had been fired for not approving the salary increase, was still working there. He's going to seek a legal advice on the matter. Is this something that PRASA can explain away, Thandi?
Sorry, can you just repeat the question?
I'm saying, is this something that PRASA can explain, just based on the refutals and rebuttals by Mr. Letsoalo in response to the press?
Well, I think that as a state-owned entity, I think there is a certain level of transparency that needs to be taken into account. So, yes, I think that there are things that need to be explained. They need to be held accountable, and, correct procedure needs to be followed. And, if there have been irregularities, if people are to blame, then that needs to be dealt with.
All right, we're going to leave it there. Thank you so much. That's Thandi Smith, the media from Media Monitoring Africa. And on the line, we had Manuel De Freitas, DA Member of Parliament. And in studio, we'll continue with a chat on another vein, on other stories making headlines today, which is the next story we're following up. Now, the ANC has reached a settlement with its general manager, Ignatius Jacobs, who's accused of being the war room covert operation mastermind. Jacobs has quit the party with a reported 6-month salary payout. A covert war room operation was reportedly aimed at sabotaging opposition parties during last year's municipal elections. The ANC has distanced itself from the entire campaign and initiated disciplinary proceedings against Jacobs. But now a settlement has been reached with Jacobs even before the disciplinary hearing. Ignatius Jacobs has quit the party ahead of the supposed disciplinary hearing, and the settlement has secured him a 6-month salary payout with neither party accepting any liability regarding the war room campaign. The lid was blown off the covert operation after PR strategist Sihle Bolani brought a lawsuit against the ANC for failing to pay the millions for putting the campaign together. Bolani alleged that she was approached by Jacobs to create a war room campaign ahead of the local government elections. The campaign was focused on enhancing the ANC's presence on social media and disempowering its political rivals, and that the covert operation intended to produce and plant fake EFF posters to disarm the opposition. And to continue the discussion with Sangwela, a political analyst, and Aloha Baleni, political analyst, Zizikodwa, ANC national spokesperson. Gentlemen, good evening again. And just looking at this war room saga, something that the ANC is going to find very difficult to live down, because on one point, the general manager, Ignatius Jacobs, went to put in a cohort of people to put together this campaign, which the NEC had denied, and the party is distancing itself. Do you think this is the ideal way of handling this matter, Alua?
It's a very difficult one, because I think if something happens within the organization, there has to be someone who accounts on what would have happened. It becomes unfortunate that the ANC would say they are distancing themselves away from whatever transpired. Then you ask yourself, who would have actually hired the person, signed it off? So it is not very clear what happened again. And this is the other problem that we have, that when problems avail, it looks like we have a problem of people actually coming up and saying, I'm accounting. So we need to actually find out what really would have happened in this regard. Because if it was a campaign election, that actually they would have benefited from. Somehow they need to actually account on what happened.
Yeah. I mean, they sort of rotate in terms of who will run the election campaign. Mama Action Mvula Mokonyana was involved this time with Minister of Sport, File Mbalula, etc., in trying to do a almost universal approach to what the elections is going to be. It's the first that we hear of a war room. Is this just a case of not adequate monitoring of processes, in that any member in good standing, if they feel the need to run a campaign which they may believe for one reason or the other to benefit the party, they can go ahead?
Well, Cindy, I've been on this platform before and I spoke about the war room to say it is not something that is unheard of in politics. Various political organizations throughout the world, including the DA and the EFF in South Africa, they've got some form of covert operations that they're using in order to discredit the ruling party and so forth. What happened and what went wrong here, unfortunately for the African National Congress, was that the lead, was open. This matter was blown out of proportion, and unfortunately by one of the service providers, the lady Sihle Bolani, when she demanded her money. The wrong things is their propaganda machinery or their spin doctors did not handle this properly, I must say, at the beginning, to start denying something. Gwene Mantashe said something different from what Zizi was saying. They distanced themselves from this operation and all this thing. And suddenly they come back and they say, Mr. Ignatius was given a responsibility for marketing and what purposes. I think this is a good move in this instance, at this juncture, to put closure to this matter, because continuing to disassociate themselves with the decision of somebody they hired to run a campaign, it was discrediting them. That's one point. The second point that is, actually, I wish Zizi was here to come and answer to some of the questions, but I've always been under the impression that Ignatius is a member of the African National Congress, despite being employed to run a campaign. Now, why would he resign from a membership of a political organization? If he resigns from the job that was given to him and he's been given a golden handshake, it's a different case scenario whereby it's an employer.
We told
employee.
he quit the party, so he's
He quit the party. You know, that's what it's about. Why would he quit the party that he belongs to because of the work contract? At least he has got a golden handshake. The question we should be asking is, did Ms. Bolani receive her payment regarding the services that she claimed to have rendered to the ANC during the election campaign? But like I said, war rooms are common within politics. It's normal what they did. I don't say it's correct. I'm saying it is normal what they did, and other political parties have done it before through other means. And I think they should just put this matter behind them and move forward.
Yeah, so the strategy, it just went horribly wrong, as you're saying, that it's natural operations. In a situation of an election, you know, it's all or nothing. So the stakes are quite high. But the ANC, in this case, by failing to pay a service provider, for all we know, we may not have heard of the story had Ms. Bolani been paid.
Certainly wouldn't have heard the story.
Yeah.
Certainly wouldn't have heard the story. And I think the golden check process that actually happened, like my colleague is saying, I think the ANC currently is involved in a lot of kind of problems. We're hearing that there are factions and all those things. I think if there's anything that they can cut short, it works for them. So for him to have actually paid this person so that it becomes off the system, they deal with something else. I think, for me, I think that was the best thing that they could have done.
Yeah, but has the movement perhaps gotten too big? And as I was saying, that the laws may not be clear, that if you're a member in good standing and you come up with what you think is a brilliant initiative to aid the party and it backfires, and then, you know, the top brass essentially would have to clean up. I mean, you just have to take an example of the memorabilia. Anybody and everybody essentially can print their desired outfits with little control.
Well, Cindy, remember, this is a different campaign. You know, it's not like Mr. Ignatius was asked to organize a rally or a festival and then the speakers collapse or the sound system is not good. That's a different case. If you fail to do that, you will not be paid. But this was supposed to be a secret operation. This was supposed to be an undercover, dirty form of political operation that he was supposed to run with. And whether it was his idea to can have covert operations under this matter, or it was the organizational top brass decision as well, because there was an electioneering committee that, as you correctly said, that was led by Ms. Nomvola Mokonyane in this time, and previous years it was the Minister Fikile Mbalula of Sport. But if it backfires, that's the nature of covert operations. If you are in an undercover operation and things goes wrong, your handlers or your bosses will naturally disassociate themselves from you.
Yeah, by receiving or accepting the golden handshake, is he essentially being the fall guy, as it were? Alo?
I'm not very sure what other option he would have had, because if at the end of the day he was contracted to provide a service and then he's getting paid and even in advance, I mean, I don't think he would have opted in any other way. So that one for me is the best, for him to actually get his pay and for the ANC to concentrate on other things. Because, I mean, in terms of the program of the ANC, there are bigger things to come. I mean, we are all aware what is going to be happening just by the end of the year and next year. So I think for me, the concentration and the energy for the ANC and focus should be for the future, not on the past election. I mean, who doesn't know that, I mean, the Tshwane municipality is being controlled by who now? So we can't be going back there. We need to actually move forward. And for me, I think taking him out of the table and off the table and to look forward is the best for me.
He's banished now into the political wilderness, and is he essentially being spared again, in the sense that, you know, the penalty could have been worse? They could have instituted legal or whatever other measures.
Cindy, like I said, they were very calculative. Look, it is also not a good move. I always tell people to dispose somebody who has critical, damaging information about the organization. It is not a good thing to do, because right now he may be standing where he's standing as a free agent and say whatever he wants to say, disclose information that the public may want to hear that we don't have access to at the moment. So I think it was a good move for him to be paid, his dues or whatever the settlement before they could even go into a disciplinary hearing. It's also, as my colleague has said, it's good for the movement to leave one of these small things. To spy on other organizations is a small thing compared to the dilemma and the challenges the ANC is faced with this year and next year. I would have done the same. I would have focused on the bigger challenges the organization is having than to focus on paying somebody his monies and then ask him to leave the space, and then we focus on the bigger picture.
All right, thanks.